Please take your seats. The program will begin shortly. Please rise as the United States Navy Color Guard delivers a presentation of colors and plays our national anthem. Advance the colors. Retire the colors. Please be seated.
Recognizing our interconnectedness in today's society may seem difficult, but we could muster the courage to work for it again, as we have in other points in our history.
I believe that history, particularly a complex and nuanced view of it, can be a table around which all of us can have a civil discourse and try to evoke those better angels of our nature.
And I think my working in that project probably helped me a good deal later on as I continued my career, because I was able to be more forceful and to have greater conviction about what I was doing because of that project. And I think that NEH does this all over the country, where you can come into an environment and see that there is something of value taking place in the humanities. and foremost, the public has to be able to encounter the humanities. That firsthand encounter changes people, edifies them in a way that nothing else can.
Good evening, and welcome to the 2023 Jefferson Lecture. We are proud to begin tonight's program with a performance from the Howard University Gospel Choir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reginald Golden, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as the music director of the Howard Gospel Choir. Dr. Simmons, we honor you, and we're very grateful to be able to be here. We want to share a few songs that are a rich part of our culture, and thus then a rich part of America's culture and America's history. First is an arrangement of a song that we know that you know that just says, "Oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in." Has anyone ever been to New Orleans and ever heard a brass band play it? Okay, very good. Very good. And if you like me, you feel like you got some loved ones over in glory who you want to see again. So this song just says, "Oh Lord, I want to be in that number when the saints go marching in." Just like this. Come on, if you're gonna go. If you're gonna go marching in, come clap your hands with me. Come clap your hands with me. Come, ladies, let's sing marching. I wanna go marching in. Let's go. Marching. Go marching in. Go marching in. Yeah. Go marching in. Everyone, let's go. Marching, go marching in. Go marching in. Marching, go marching in. Go marching in. Go marching in. Go marching. Go marching. Go. Oh, sing the wondrous love of Jesus. Sing His mercy and His grace. In those mansions, bright and blessed, He'll prepare for us a place. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Now we're going to sing a song. That's just a quick call and response that just says, hold on. Change is coming. Hold on. Don't worry about a thing. Listen, I know it's 2023, and I know that there's a lot to be worried about, but we don't have to be anxious for anything. With prayer and supplication, we can make our requests made known to the Lord. Song says, hold on. Encourage your neighbor, say, neighbor, you can make it. Neighbor, you can make it. Come on, start to warm the voice, say, neighbor, you can make it. Neighbor, you can take it. Go. Yeah, one more time. Say, hold on. Hold on. Say, be strong. Be strong. Hold on. Hold on. Be strong. Be strong. Hold on. Hold on. Be strong. Be strong. Hold on. Go. Come on, you should be feeling a little bit better right now already. Put your hands on it. Come on, sing it, Will. You ready? Let's go. Okay. Second place, here we go. Song just says, yesterday, a man stepped to me, said, how can you smile when your world is crumbling down? I said, here's my secret. When I'm on the quiet I take a look around and I see that I'm getting by. So I hold on. Change is coming. Change is coming. Hold on. Hold on. Don't you worry. Don't worry about a thing. You should hold on. Hold on. We're gonna make it. We can make it. Hold on. Hold on. Everything will be alright.
I like to worry. Some people like to hide. Some people like to run away from the pain inside. Now that's your business. Do whatever you want to do. And if it don't work out, here's what we're gonna do. Now hold on. Hold on. Change is coming. Change is coming. Hold on. Hold on. Don't worry.
Don't worry about a thing.
Hold on.
Hold on.
You can make it.
You can make it.
Oh, you can make it.
Hold on.
One thing.
Everything will be alright.
Say hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Say hold on.
Hold on.
Don't worry.
Don't worry about a thing.
Hold on.
Hold on.
You can make it.
Hold on. Hold on.
Everything
will be alright.
La la
la la
la la
la la
Hold on.
Hold on.
Change is coming.
Change is coming.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Don't
worry about a thing.
Hold on.
Hold on.
You can make it.
You can make it.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Everything
will be alright.
Listen, now we know that you came to have a good time and to hear a lecture. And you're going to hear one of the greatest. You're going to hear from one of the greatest. But before, we need to make sure that you participated, right? If we were at church, somebody might say, this is the part of the service in which we can all can what? Participate, okay? So get your offering in your hand or get it in your throat. We about to sing, okay? So copy up to me. Listen, let me see. La, 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 la. More. La, 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 la. One more time, la, la. If you believe it, sing, hold on. Come on, our change is coming. Hold on. Don't you worry through the storm. You should hold on. Believe it, you should hold on. One more time. Through everything, hold on. Everything. Last time, say, hold on. Hold on.
We are honored to introduce the Andrew W. Mellon, Director of the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, Kevin Young.
I feel I should say amen after that. Tonight's sermon will begin. Good evening. I'm Kevin Young, the Andrew W. Mellon Director of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, or as my mom says, the person who can finally get her tickets to the museum. I'm more than excited by our partnership with the National Endowment for the Humanities for this year's Jefferson Lecture in Humanities by the one and only Ruth J. Simmons. Let's give that a round of applause. This collaboration reflects our collective commitment to preserving and celebrating our nation's rich history and culture, and for celebrating the humanities, that thing that helps remind us, like both our organizations do, of our shared humanity. We are thrilled to have Dr. Simmons with us tonight, whose dedication to education and advancing knowledge is simply awe-inspiring. And as I can testify firsthand, she also gives great advice. As you know, Ruth was president of Brown University, where I did my graduate work, though sadly, before her tenure there, she single-handedly transformed the university and led the way for it to be the first Ivy and one of the first places of higher education to acknowledge its role with slavery. Among the many other things I could mention, she's also a founding council member for this museum, joining in 2010. She has provided wisdom as well as continued support for the museum, funding the Simmons Talk Lecture Series, which we inaugurated earlier this year. We are grateful for her helping to ensure that the stories and legacies within the museum continue to inspire and educate future generations. I'm also happy to say Dr. Simmons has newly published her important memoir, Up Home, One Girl's Journey. And as the New York Times, in its terrific review of the book, declares, Up Home shows us well how this dignified, powerful woman looks back in wonder at how she got over. I immediately ordered 3 or 4 copies for friends and family, so if she's tired from signing backstage, you'll know why. Something you might not know is that Dr. Simmons also led the selection committee to conduct the search that led me to be here. This was in 2020, in the height of the pandemic. So you can imagine my surprise when, after talking to her on the phone a month or so before, and it was before shutdown when we talked, about something else entirely. I logged onto a platform that was a bit like Zoom. I think it had a name like Blue Jean or something like that. To see her welcoming and knowing smile, I was like, she didn't mention this when we spoke a couple weeks ago. So thank you, Ruth, personally and publicly for that, and for bringing us all here and together tonight. Thank you so much for honoring living history as we do in the museum, and for letting us all know and reminding us that we make history daily, and that history is something we are living now. We're also thrilled to welcome and have Shelley C. Lowe with us tonight, Chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities. We are grateful for her commitment to promoting the humanities nationwide and her leadership of the NEH. Please join me in welcoming Chair Lowe.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's very hard to see you with the bright light here, but I see a lot of people in the room. Well, yat Shelley Lowe Yanishia, Belgana Nishle, Nanistage Tachini Bashichi, Belgana Dashache, do Trabaha Dashanale, Locantia de Nasha, do Washington Dishigan. My name is Shelley Lowe. I am Navajo. I'm originally from Ganado, Arizona. I'm chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities, and I live and work here in Washington, D.C. I want to thank Director Young for those welcome remarks, and I want to give a very special thank you to the Howard University Gospel Choir, who opened tonight's event in such a meaningful way. I think all NEH events should open that way. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 50th Jefferson Lecture in the Humanities, and to introduce tonight's esteemed speaker, Dr. Ruth J. Simmons. We come together tonight on the traditional homelands of the Anacostan people and their descendants, the Piscataway. I want to acknowledge and thank members of the Piscataway tribes for hosting NEH staff recently and for sharing with us their history and their knowledge of this land. Tonight, we are also gathered in this majestic building on the National Mall, at the only National Museum devoted exclusively to the documentation of African American life, history, and culture in the United States. We are here to honor the strength of the humanities and how they guide us as a people and as a nation. Throughout her remarkable career, Dr. Ruth Simmons has worked to ensure that students of all backgrounds can access what she calls the magic of the humanities. Too often, the humanities are seen as an obscure subject, found and used in academia, not in everyday living. Spaces like the National Museum of African American History and Culture and events like the one we're gathered here for tonight remind us of how deeply entrenched the magic of the humanities are in all of us. I would like to thank the staff at NEH who work every day to make the humanities available to all Americans and in everyday life. I offer my sincere gratitude to the hardworking NEH staff who made tonight's event possible, including Shelby Lopez and our fantastic communications and publications team, Senior Deputy Chair Tony Mitchell, the voice of authority you've been hearing, Chief of Staff Kelsey Coates, and everyone joining us here today and watching online. I would like to acknowledge the members of the National Council on the Humanities, the 26-member body that advises the head of NEH on the awarding of federal grants to support humanities projects around the country, many of whom are here today. We are also joined by members of Congress and senior staff from Capitol Hill, senior officials in the Biden-Harris administration, leaders from across higher education and the humanities field, and family, friends, and colleagues of our esteemed lecturer. Thank you all so much for your support, your service to the American people, and your support of the humanities. Tonight's event would not be possible without the generous financial support of Charles P. Case of Manitou Springs, Colorado, who was an avid supporter of the arts and humanities throughout his life, along with his husband, Val St. Cloud. I would also like to acknowledge the members of the Board of Directors for the National Trust for the Humanities who are with us here tonight. And I would like to thank Abby and Howard Milstein and Georgette Bennett for their support of the Jefferson Lecture. Finally, thank you to Secretary Lonnie Bunch, again, Director Kevin Young, and the staff of the National Museum of African American History and Culture for hosting this NEH event tonight. And now, with much anticipation, we celebrate the 50th Jefferson Lecture in the Humanities, the highest honor the federal government confers for distinguished intellectual achievement in the humanities. I had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Ruth Simmons a few months ago at Rice University in Houston, where she told me about the importance of bringing people together to learn about our differences and our common humanity. In our conversation, she reflected on her early life in segregated East Texas in the 1940s. It was a place, she notes, where African Americans were expected to stay out of the way and not step out of their lane. But Ruth Simmons could not be contained. As she writes in her new memoir, Up Home, One Girl's Journey, she was a noisy and curious child, always laughing. She would wander barefoot through the fields and meadows. She delighted in her father's tall tales and the stories she'd recite in church. She dreamed of a different, better life. At age 6, Ruth first walked into a classroom. She remembers the thrill. It was like being struck by lightning. In the school library, she discovered new worlds in Little Women and Jane Eyre. She saw herself in Anne of Green Gables, who, like her, was also talkative and a dreamer. In literature, Ruth came to understand that there was more to life than what she saw. There was, in her words, a way forward. In college, she studied Spanish in Saltillo, Mexico, and French in Paris and Metz. Her colleagues thought she was impractical, but as she put it, she was falling in love with ideas. Ruth Simmons would eventually earn her PhD in Romance languages and literatures from Harvard University. For Ruth, language could open doors to unfamiliar worlds. One door it opened was at Princeton University, where in 1985 she helped direct the Afro-American Studies program, recruiting the great Toni Morrison, among others, to join their ranks. A decade later, Dr. Simmons was named president of Smith College, and in 2001 she was selected to lead Brown University, becoming the first Black Ivy League president. While there, she appointed a committee to examine the university's historical ties to the transatlantic slave trade. As Ruth told me in our conversation, everybody thought she was crazy for wanting to look at such a fraught topic. She was told that African Americans didn't have a right to be risk takers, but she pushed on. And it paid off. The result was a watershed report that looked at the university's painful history of slavery, encouraging other institutions to follow suit. That's the remarkable thing about shining a light. It clears a path for others. In 2017, Dr. Simmons was named president of Prairie View A&M, becoming the first woman to lead the historically Black university. Earlier, I mentioned Toni Morrison, with whom Ruth worked at Princeton. The late novelist was our 25th Jefferson Lecturer in the Humanities. In 1996, Toni Morrison took the stage at the Kennedy Center here in Washington, D.C., and spoke eloquently about the power of the humanities. She stated in that lecture, "Literature is an unblinding witness to the light and shade of the world we live in." Ruth Simmons has never shied away from either light or shade. She found in literature what she calls an interior life, a way forward and a way out. Ruth was a noisy and curious child, which I think is her gift. After all, it's the noisy and curious among us who question, who dream, who eventually change the world. And now, please help me in welcoming the 2023 Jefferson Lecturer, Dr. Ruth J. Simmons.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Chair Shelley Lowe, Senior Deputy Chair Tony Mitchell, and other members of the leadership of the National Endowment for the Humanities, I thank you so very much for inviting me to deliver the 50th Jefferson Lecture. Since its creation in 1965, the endowment has played a leading role in enhancing the quality of our national life through programs that promote excellence in the humanities. Chief among its tasks has been the steadfast support of efforts to disseminate widely the truth of our history and the nature of our present condition. Given the role of the humanities in creating a pathway for me to understand my country, my history, and the means to face the future, my gratitude and pleasure in this moment cannot be overstated. Thank you. I'm especially pleased to have this lecture take place in this venerable venue, a place that also acknowledges the importance of understanding history and culture and encourages a deep and unembellished examination of the past. The millions of visitors who have crossed the threshold of this museum can attest that the uplifting exemplars and actions chronicled here help us envision a more peaceful, wholesome, and sustainable future. I'm grateful to Secretary of the Smithsonian Institution, Lonnie Bonch, and of course, our Director of the National Museum of African American History and Culture, Kevin Young, for allowing me to be associated with this institution and its vital mission on behalf of the nation. From the Romanesque style of the Smithsonian Castle to the remarkable lattice work of this museum's facade, the very architecture of America's struggles and the hopefulness of its continuing evolution come alive on the Washington Mall. From the time this museum opened with the bipartisan assistance of Presidents George Bush and Barack Obama, it has been both a beacon and balm for those seeking to acknowledge in full the nation's past, its present context, and its future potential. For the virtually unbounded opportunities that can be made possible by the evolution of civil and human rights will be impeded only by an inclination to dismiss the importance of understanding our past. The humanistic endeavors chronicled by the holdings of the Smithsonian affirm powerfully the truth of E.O. Wilson's assertion that, quote, the humanities address in fine detail all the ways human beings relate to one another and to the environment, and, I would add, how we relate to what has gone before. Indeed, it becomes more and more apparent in this political climate that relating to the past and to one another is a supremely urgent need. Knowledge of our history and culture, as explored and powerfully experienced through the disciplines represented by the holdings and the exhibits curated in this museum, impresses upon us the importance of that commonality as the pathway to a more informed and robustly shared future. Now, as a lifelong educator, I've sought to facilitate the ability of students to acquire such knowledge. Recalling my own childhood in 1940s and 50s America, I impart to them my certainty from an early age that every dimension of my future would be greatly hampered by the somber and at times brutal realities of that period, typified by stark racial divisions, unfettered assaults on minority rights, and campaigns of denigration. Those times imposed restrictions based solely on racial and gender bias, fomenting despair and hopelessness, division, and inhumanity. Our country was on a disturbing path, the consequences of which we still experience today. At first, barred from the type of learning that would have offered me an understanding of my plight and therefore solutions for how to live with such a reality, I could imagine no escape from the economic, cultural, and social boundaries set for me and for everyone I knew. Untouched by art, ignorant of the bounty that knowledge could afford, unaware of the variegated humanity that would ultimately influence my path, I accepted the bleak prospects before me. Most troubling of all, I was incognizant of who I was as a human being and unaware of what promise that condition afforded me. I simply could not imagine a bright future. Happily, I was introduced to school at the age of 6, and like a flower gradually revealing its full complement of petals over time, my life began to open to extraordinary possibilities, revealing in time who I could be in the world. The fact that the extent of what could be known seemed boundless in its potential to illuminate my path was a gift of immeasurable importance to me in a young life marked by need. The need for most basic human rights, the need for reliable daily sustenance, the need for respect. Hungry for reassurance that my existence meant something, I devoured information and welcomed experiences that made me more acquainted with the broader world. And so gradually I began to see who I was and what I might become. I'm grateful, therefore, to those who take care to see that all of us, and especially our children, have access to the kind of unfettered learning that broadens our understanding of the world. I believe that the flowering of such knowledge invariably lifts our sights, bolsters our understanding of who we are, satisfies our curiosity, and by enabling us to be more rounded and capacious as human beings, prepares us to be better stewards of a shared purpose. After all, what is more central to living with dignity and purpose than the determination and means to understand the human condition and participate in shaping its future? Without that intentional quest, we are likely to be at odds with the world, at odds with our essential nature, and in the end, at odds with the lessons of our history. We would be, in effect, as mere actors, not inhabiting our true selves with purpose, but merely performing tasks in a tragic pretense of existence. As a young person, my drive to understand the nature of my unique relationship to the world found answers principally through exploration of the humanities. For these disciplines in particular, responded to my persistent questions about my life and my fate. Where did I come from? And why was I who I seemed to be? Given the limitations of slavery and sharecropping, how would victims of such practices find ways to express themselves and forge a better future? But of course, rudimentary practices in the culture of poverty and farm work made me aware of the importance of understanding the past even before I received a formal introduction to history philosophy, theology, arts, and letters. Just as you heard the marvelous songs from the Howard University Choir, we had songs, work songs heard in the plantation fields, religious rituals afforded by crudely constructed churches and baptisms in creeks, and oral lore recounted by elders gave me a glimpse of a powerful legacy of humanizing knowledge, behavior, and performance that could not be negated or forever stunted by hostile social policies. These simple, everyday experiences recounted plainly the injustice we endured, stirred our spiritual selves, celebrated our connections to each other, and affirmed our worth. Soul-affirming accounts of our past reveal estimable traits that I might have inherited: determination, resilience, compassion, and irrepressible hopefulness. And my maternal grandmother was the incarnation of these traits. An apparent visual manifestation of her African slave origins, she overcame obstacles with grace and determination. Even we grandchildren who never met her learned of her courage, exemplified by her diminutive but fierce mane. Invariably depicted as wearing long white dresses that stood out against her black skin, she preferred to carry implausibly heavy loads on her head, whether water from the well or heavy provisions for the household. She and her husband, Richard, had bought and settled land in the early part of the 20th century and passed it on to her children. Accounts of her maxims and her habits inspired generations in my family to carry heavy burdens without faltering. I knew this history and understood it to be my greatest inheritance. So no matter the political or economic circumstances, even in the face of official policies that withhold truth, suppress the freedom to learn, and curtail basic rights, we possess by birthright the capacity to probe our origins, to tell and receive our own stories, to represent through art the truth of who we are, and to ponder what our future can be. The humanities greatly enlarge this capacity and protect the ability to see beyond measures that stifle truth and access to knowledge. If we protect and facilitate their reach deep into the underserved communities, the humanities will be a lifelong endowment to the poor, and one that can never be taken away from them. The telling of stories made available through humanistic disciplines has been central to my own growth and perspective. Whether real or invented, metered or prose, sung or recited, visually depicted or oral, storytelling can provide a meaningful context for what we see in reality and what we dream of becoming. From the invention and recounting of mythic figures that help us understand the nature of the world, to the powerful figures drawn from our imagination, a vast tableau of humankind is at our disposal, helping us gain perspective on human behavior and psychology. I knew from my earliest experiences with reading works of fiction and poetry that I was learning about human nature in a way that I could not extract from the segregated world that imprisoned me until I was 17 years old, severely limiting my contact with those who were different. It's not a surprise that when I ultimately chose a direction for my life and career, I ran headlong into the embrace of literature and language, fields that I thought might enable a greater understanding of the breadth of humanity from which I was shielded. The ability of writers to convey a vast range of emotions and intent overwhelmed me as a child, and I have to say, overwhelms me still. A description of a quotidian object in the hands of a creative and visionary wordsmith could provide startling insights, as in this passage from Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. I'm quoting, "These and other inanimate things she saw and experienced, they were real to her. She knew them. They were the codes and touchstones of the world, capable of translation and possession. She owned the crack that made her stumble. She owned the clumps of dandelions whose white heads last fall she had blown away, whose yellow heads this fall she peered into. And owning them made her part of the world and the world part of her." End of quote. Like Pekla in The Bluest Eye, I wanted to explain all that I encountered, and I longed to understand the meaning of everything about me. These codes and touchstones of the world reassured me that I was in the world and of the world. Gaining familiarity with the space that I occupied made me curious about more distant realms. And eventually this led to learning about others very different from me. By embracing openness to difference, I discovered the key to confronting the racism that wounded and bound me. This openness and a fierce will to understand those different from me finally freed me of the prison of hatred and despair. The gift of being able to embrace difference was, I believe, the most liberating gift of my young life. Discovering the interplay of the perspectives and identities so different from mine empowered my life and gave me a view of the world beyond what I had first imagined. I was captivated by the unique ways that individuals express themselves. The body of fields that involve wordcraft, languages, literatures, music, theater are a boon to those who lack the resources to voice their claim to just treatment. Observing the ability of others to express their identity and concerns enabled me to embrace my power to do the same. I understood that through the thoughtful use of language, I could convey all that I wished: anger, love, compassion, vision, and protest. I came to believe that the acquisition, rigorous practice, and refinement of language skills is fundamental to a well-informed, peaceful, civil society in which individuals and groups communicate across difference and coexist with empathy, respect, and shared purposefulness. Regrettably, emphasis on acquiring this capacity is perhaps most neglected and undervalued in marginalized and underserved communities, where it is, ironically, most important. Writers across cultures and centuries have amply demonstrated the power of language and expression to advance society and elevate the marginalized. Though born 4 centuries before me, and a world apart from my circumstances, the French writer Michel de Montaigne had a tremendous influence on my thinking and ultimately on the choices I made in my life. His reasoning reached across time to help me envision how to function in the present. Reflecting upon his wisdom, interpretation, and genre, I came to appreciate my responsibility to reflect deeply, to express myself with sensitivity, and to act. The use of the essay, combining as it did Montaigne's unapologetic personal reactions to what he was experiencing, struck me as a supremely effective means of wrestling with the contingencies of life. Turning his inner reflections outward, he invited us into his world. And if I could feel the force of his thoughts, in spite of the vast cultural differences between us, how could similar efforts on my part not bridge far less daunting differences of time and culture? Through Montaigne, I found a way to see myself advancing our common task as a people and a nation. In many ways, my writing has tried to harness the spirit of Montaigne's work by speaking personally to matters as they appear to me. As a college president, I communicate with my students directly, deliberately stripping away bureaucratic barriers to communicate more viscerally. Upon the death of George Floyd, I wrote my students a letter voicing my personal reaction to this tragedy. In that perilous moment in our national life, I was mindful of Montaigne's ubiquitous question, que sais-je? What did I know in that moment? And how did I come to know it? My students needed to experience the progression of my doubt and of my thoughts. Those who insist on being uniquely and narrowly at one with their own time might miss the enriching experience of connecting themselves to lessons of history. Seeing history evolve, one can appreciate the breadth of humankind's journey and the power of its potential. Those ignorant of the past and its multifarious observers and chroniclers miss the deepest and most meaningful connection to what it means to be an actor in the human drama. That a nobleman so removed from my time could so eloquently relate to an isolated, impoverished girl struggling to survive in the New World speaks powerfully to the call of historical accounts. Such observations of distant times can easily illuminate the present and point to a future course. In a similar fashion, two other authors of the 16th century had an impact on my 20th century thinking, creating insights into how I might act in my own time and life. Author of La défense et illustration de la langue française, Joachim du Bellay and his contemporary French Renaissance writers set forth a daring proposition in the 16th century that the French language, then considered vulgar and inferior to Greek and Latin, could be refined and elevated in usage. Their manifesto struck me as a useful guide at a time when African and African American works were considered less worthy than canonically anointed texts in English and French. As I was maturing as a student of the humanities, universities in this country were just beginning to accept the legitimacy and equality of African American and even American writers. The admission of African American students led officials in universities to incorporate, often tepidly, with an air of hauteur, courses in African American history and culture, without, however, acknowledging the fundamental legitimacy of study and scholarship in this field. Yet it seemed to me that direct action to elevate the importance of study in this area was paramount to our understanding of the country we live in and to the strengthening of a common national purpose. As a student of French literature, I also learned about steps taken by African writers, Léopold Sédar Senghor and Aimé Césaire, who in the 1960s affirmed the need to create a unique expression that elevated their African and Caribbean culture and language. Aimé Césaire in particular seemed to me the ideal warrior for our times. His Cahier d'un retour au pays natal was in essence a manifesto asserting that only a unique language could accurately describe the culture of his native land Martinique. While masterfully using the French language, he embellished it with references and imagery that undeniably evoked his island nation and its history. Césaire and his contemporaries repeated in the 1960s what Du Bellay and his cohort had done for French in the 1500s, insisting on a language better suited to express their ideas and emotions. They extolled the beauty and utility of the language they were helping to create. Both movements gave the world exemplary works of literature. As a college student, I was exhilarated to learn that a language praised in our time was once considered a gutter language, and that it took the effort of adherents of the beauty of French to press for its usage over Latin. I found the actions of such activist writers particularly instructive at a time when African and African American culture and language was considerably less worthy of admiration and study. The historic efforts of Du Bellay, Césaire, and others caused me to focus on ways of elevating African American studies in university curricula. I came to understand not only the wisdom of valuing unique minority cultural expression in the context of dominant majority expression, but also the need to advocate strongly for the value of minority cultural expression. So much of my life's work derives from the inspiration of similar movements. Though not an Afro-American studies scholar myself, I saw the need to advance the inclusion of Afro-American studies in the American studies canon, to change the way institutions perceived African American studies. I led African American studies at Princeton. I chaired the African American Studies Visiting Committee at Harvard, and most recently I called for the creation of Afro American Studies at Prairie. With recent renewed challenges to the validity of studying this history, universities will need to resist a revival of the politics of hate and protect student programs that address the history and culture of groups that have created the rich tapestry of our nation. I'm grateful that I encountered humanistic thinkers and writers who showed me the value of addressing falsely fabricated narratives of history that willfully exclude the perspectives of those who create that history. I had gravitated toward the humanities because of a deep need to understand and address my own circumstances. Whether through my readings of philosophers like Fanon and Sartre, or my familiarity with dramatists like Sophocles and Tennessee Williams, I absorbed interpretations of the will and woes of centuries of striving. And that striving gave me cause to see myself in a less passive context than circumstances had ordered for me. The doing that began to shape my early life was awakened by historians, writers, dramatists, and philosophers who showed me a way to deal with the issues of my time. The life that took shape as a result was not the life that was prescribed for me by the circumstances of my birth, but rather the life that was created by virtue of my gaining an understanding of what could be possible in my unique encounter with the world. Every child needs the humanities to build their understanding of who they are and who they can be in the world. The troubling current efforts to eliminate the encounter with aspects of history that could be unpalatable to some are deeply ignorant of the beneficial effects that such knowledge can have on a peaceful civil society built on difference. Rich accounts of the past and powerful interpretations of the present provided me with a broad acquaintance with many facets of human history and achievement. That understanding then propelled me to formulate my own questions, seek guidance from the lessons of the past, and build a future based on hopefulness rather than despair. Looking to the examples I encountered in the humanities, I was able to shape a vision of what could be rather than remain mired in what could not be. I was able to appreciate the beneficial effects of reflection, self-expression, and doubt. Montaigne's question, que sais-je, was a leitmotif throughout my journey. Through my encounter with the humanities, I understood that my humanity is worth questioning, worth refining, worth sharing, and worth defending. I learned that it ties me to the past and to others who share the human condition. And most importantly, I grew certain that I could improve upon my contribution to the human condition by acknowledging and promoting the worth of others who differ from me. That is what I know, thanks to the humanities. And now I leave you with a song. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it. One from an interpreter of my culture that evokes my culture, and I hope one that marks my path every day. It's from Sonia Sanchez's A Love Song for Spelman, number 6. Like ordained priests, ancient, walking in precise memory, like ordained warriors, majestic, Amazon women planting our songs among the stars and on the waters. Our songs from farms and cotton fields, from sugar plantations and slums. Our songs from urban and suburban roads. Our songs from Alabama to Georgia, Brazil, and Harlem, Washington, D.C., and the Congo. Miracle songs. Our songs clotting our blood when we bled. Our songs sweet like eucalyptus against the silence. Our songs freezing and burning, moving out of corners, remaking the air. Indeed, I would say, remaking the world. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Simmons, for that moving lecture, for inspiring us to dream just a little bit bigger. I'm so heartened by you choosing to come and give this lecture for us, for accepting this invitation and this honor, and for sharing your experiences, your life, and your vision with us. Thank you once again. And now I invite all of you who are here in Heritage Hall to make your way to the 4th floor or downstairs to the concourse level to enjoy the reception and to explore the museum's beautiful galleries. Thank you so much.